Hey there. Thanks for joining us today. If you're joining us live, I'm Trish Campbell, and I'm just waiting for my good friend Nadine Searle to join me. We're going to talk about, I guess, all the things, but what just the energies right now. We didn't have a set topic. We're doing this after the new moon in Virgo just peaked, and we always try to time this around that because it's always, new moons are always a time for new beginnings. And let me just let Nadine in. Energies while they're there to support us. And there's all kinds of energies happening right now if you're into astrology. And even if you're not, those energies are there regardless of whether we believe in it or not. So, like I said, it's always good to just take that opportunity to tap in when we are presented with that because it's there to support us and to help us understand what's going on in our own personal lives and maybe the world at large. Hey, Nadine, welcome.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing
Just,
today?
I'm good, thank you. I just caught a little bit of what you were saying about
Yeah,
what's going on in the world at large at the moment.
yeah.
There's a lot, isn't there? There's a lot.
There's a lot, and I feel like these energies that we're in right now with this new moon, that in it itself presents us with like a kind of a clean slate. But in preparation for that, we've had all of these planets in retrograde. Um, Mercury just went direct, and I feel like Mercury is the one that everybody knows. It's more commonplace to talk about and to blame for problems or issues that come up in our lives during Mercury retrograde. But I know for me, Mercury retrograde was Mercury retrograding this time, like showing its true self in all the forms. But it really is an opportunity for us to kind of slow down with this retrograde energy at large with all of the planets, to pause and kind of reflect on where we're at. And I mean, I think the whole point of us like doing these conversations too is to kind of like talk about the things that sometimes we miss because we're just busy, being busy bees in our lives and not necessarily always intentional. So, like, to kind of like, this is a perfect opportunity to slow down, to review, to reflect all the re's of retrograde,
Yeah,
and then kind of see what we want to take forward with us. And yeah, especially around this new moon in Virgo when it feels like everyone's going back to school and it feels like a reset time and there's another um, in and of itself. So, how have you been feeling
yeah.
with all of that?
I totally agree with you. I have definitely been feeling that kind of, it's a fresh start. It's that time of year. And it
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of like when I was at school, my school days, when it was new term, new everything, new books to write in, new that kind of thing, which I really like. Like you say, it's that fresh start, that clean slate idea. And I really love that. So it's almost a little bit like New Year again, I can start again.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, I love the fact, I mean, people are scared. You're absolutely right, the retrograde. And I know so many people, especially when it's Mercury, they blame all the technical difficulties on that, don't they?
Yeah.
And I have learned through you helping me actually to remember, there's another re, isn't it? That actually it's a good thing to do all the re's, revisit,
It is.
reveal that kind of thing, So I'm not scared like I
Mm-hmm.
used to be of it. So I've got a different slant on that. I quite look forward to the retrograde actually, and knowing that it's important, like you say, it's for our growth and for our renewal. That we
Right.
actually we do this work if we like, or we have these feelings. Because as you know, for me, it's more that the feelings around that, the energy around the new moon. It's there whether we realize it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using lots of realize that kind of thing. But it is for me. For me at the moment, I do feel a little bit, another re I'm going to use because it's another good one. I feel a bit revitalized. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that comes together with that idea that we have a fresh start. And I do think I have done some of that revealing, that kind of recognized quite a lot and actually realized quite a lot of things that are
Yeah.
okay. So I'm using re
All the
words.
re's. I'm
Yeah, all the re.
But
But
that's
it
what
but it
happens naturally.
it's
Yeah.
It does, and I think that has happened with me over the last few days, that it has been happening quite naturally. And I love that because we talk a lot, don't we, Trish, about how hard everything can be, and it's hard work, and we have to do this and we have to do that. And actually, I'm finding it all a little bit easier,
Hmm.
and that's because I am relaxing a bit more.
That, yeah.
So it's that kind of, so remembering that actually the magic happens when we seem to be doing
Hmm.
nothing as much as when we're pushing on and trying really hard. If you don't mind, Trish, I've just noticed that someone's
Hi.
joined us, and I would like to say hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. If you've got any comments, or you want to add, or you want to ask us anything, please put it in the comments. We will see, won't we?
Yeah,
So
we'll
we
try.
will.
It's, yeah.
We're not very good at reading and talking, are we? But
Yeah.
we'll get
But
there. We'll get there. But please feel free to join in if you want to. What were you going to add to that,
I was
Trish?
just going to say that it's such a good point that you're making, and not. And here's a read that maybe we want is not so around that energy of like resisting what's coming up. And so I think that the more we resist what's coming up, is it's keeping us stuck.
Yeah,
And to remember, like you said, that everything that we're going through is something that we can grow through. Like any kind of change in our lives, like whether we initiate that or it's something that's happening to us, it's an opportunity for growth. And if we can just remember that, and it's okay if it's not pretty, if it's messy in the process, like there's, that's where all of the beauty and the wisdom comes through, is when we allow ourselves just to be in that, and not resist it, not push it away, because then we ultimately push away the growth that's there for us on the other side of it. And I think we all can, in some way, um, accept that that's what we're kind of here for. If we haven't yet, we're being awakened to that we're not just meant to punch a clock and work, work to pay bills and to follow a bunch of rules. And maybe, and not to say that I'm here to tell you to break rules, but it's a time when these energies are around us. It's a time to reflect on um, your belief systems and what you believe in, and not just kind of keep upholding the status quo when it's not working for you anymore. It's okay to like go from like yesterday to today and realize that you don't believe what you believed yesterday, or it's not as true for you, and that's okay. And I think a lot of us like want to resist that because like we want to be accepted. One of our core needs is to belong and be accepted. But every all like the change that needs to happen in the world is going to happen to us individually first. It's going to happen through us individually. And if we can just accept that, and also look at the opportunities in front of us, and the opportunities that are there, we can only see them if we're stopping and slowing down to see them, and say, wait a minute, like, is this what I want going forward? Like, is this, and especially now, like September, like going back to that, like you said, revitalize, like you feel that, I feel like that is such a key word for a lot of people right now. Like with the, even if you're not in school, or even if you don't have kids that are going back to school, or if you do, whatever, it's that going back to school feeling, like reset, renew, refresh, like this blank slate kind of like, what do I want to clear out that I don't, that's not serving me anymore? And that's not like a cliche statement. It's a true kind of
yeah,
reflection within
yeah,
yourself to say, am I honoring myself with how I'm living my life? Like, am I, and I feel like, I went back to going back to what I said about Mercury retrograding on me. I kind of found myself ironically caught up in kind of a revisiting situation where I thought I had, known what I wanted, but then kind of was like, oh, I kind of need to test this again and see if this is like something that could work. Or but then it's like we can go into those things, like, but that's the opportunity if we slow down and let ourselves open up to what it is we want, rather than just saying like, either be keeping in a situation that isn't aligned with us anymore, or um we don't have to necessarily live our lives that way. Like, I always call it like we're upholding the status quo, but is it the status quo working for us? Like, is it,
yeah,
and is it
yeah,
working for the greater good of everyone?
yeah.
You know, because we're all connected, and what happens to one of us happens to all of us on an energetic level, whether we believe it or not. So I'm kind of like rambling right now, but
No,
going
but
back to like for myself personally, and I think, maybe somebody else can draw their own parallels, but I kind of had to get honest with myself, and is this really serving me? Is this thing in my life really serving me? Going forward, is it going to um, hold me back? Is staying in this situation, kind of like that easy way out of not actually letting what I want to do unfold, because that can be scary too. So sometimes we can stay in situations that feel comfortable and in our comfort zone, so to speak, but ultimately they're not helping us and serving us get
mm,
to where we want to be. And
mm,
so it can be hard. It's been hard to make that decision to choose myself and to choose, to kind of, clean that slate and to get real with myself about what I need to do going forward and what I want to do, what I want to create, all of the things. So
yeah,
I've just
yeah.
talked a lot.
No, but
I'm sorry.
it's all relevant. Another rough word, and I really love that you've shared that, because what you're talking about there is, we can revisit, we can test the waters, we can go over things again, and not to be scared of that, because sometimes we do need to do that, to
Hmm.
just see how we feel, and again test how we feel by going back sometimes. And quite often we go, oh, we can't go back, we can't do that, but we can allow ourselves to do that,
Hmm.
and sometimes it is necessary, isn't it? So thank you for sharing that. It really is important. And I honestly feel that it is, like you say, it's that whole kind of, it's happening on the big world stage, but it is also happening to us individually, and there are parallels with that, aren't there? We can see there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. We do need a shake up and a change, don't we? And we are, like you said, it's sometimes we try to keep that status quo because we are frightened. And I feel for myself personally, my world has been shook upside down, and I was terrified, but it's all okay. It's good. It's another reminder, another read, coming out with
Hmm.
loads of reads. Um, but I think, I feel the big picture, that would be of benefit. I don't like what's going on at the moment with the world, and I don't want to talk politics necessarily, but I don't like it. But we need that shake up to come out and see, what's going to come that's new, because we definitely need that kind of change. So I'm sitting with my fear in that way, on a global level, and actually going and trusting that actually what will come out will be better. So and again, that is something that I've personally had to go through as well. So I'm using that as a reminder that it will be, hopefully it will be okay. I have no idea, of course,
Right.
but I'm doing that. And I'd like to pick up on what you just said earlier, because I love it about this, not telling everyone to break the rules. But sometimes it's good to do that. We stay stuck, and we stay in certain situations and behaving in certain ways because we don't want to upset anybody, do we?
Hmm.
And actually, sometimes that really doesn't work for us personally. So it is okay to break rules occasionally and step out of that, like you say, your comfort zone, step out of the norm, step out of what's expected of us sometimes. And I've got another reword there, rebel, because that
Yeah.
is, to rebel is okay too, and sometimes we need to do that, because otherwise we're not being true to ourselves. And that is important, to recognize that in ourselves and question it. And like you said earlier, that time of pause, that time of relaxing, I use relaxing meditation to actually give me that pause and that time to let my heart speak rather than my head.
Yeah.
And what comes back quite often is that I need to change and not be so people pleasing and that kind of
Mm.
thing. And that is okay. And it's good to know, isn't it? So again, I'd like to give everyone a bit permission to rebel a bit, break a few rules, pause, because it's so important just to stop for a minute. And I love that the cycles, and this is why we do this around the new moon time, isn't it? The cycles of the moon are there. They are creating emotions. They create a change in the environment, the way we feel, if we choose to notice, like you always say. But it's there anyway. And if we tap into that, we then naturally do what I think we need to do, that time
Right.
to go. I always meditate on the new moon. I always do my creating and setting intentions. I do that on purpose because it serves me so well.
Yeah.
And I know I get this feeling that the universe is supporting me so much at that particular time. And I believe that to be true. I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that, and I love that we do these chit chats around this time because it is important. And again, I'd encourage anybody else to do the same. You know, even if it's just take a moment, recognize what's going on, tune in, see what you can feel, and let's go with it because you will get something come up because you're tuning in. Nature's always there to help us. We've got a bit of a change of season, haven't we? You know, that again, I feel revitalized by that sometimes, you know, a bit of a change. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but we are coming into autumn. And I love that. It's a change.
It
And as
is,
much
yeah.
as I resist change a lot, but the changes of the seasons I love. It's fresh and I love that. So
Well, and it's like we can follow that cycle of nature because we are a part of
yeah,
it, like that fall season where, you know, it's just part of the process, and to allow ourselves to be in that renewal, you know, to kind of the ultimate renewal of that. But I want to go back to not get off on a side topic because that's a whole other thing, but which is like also a reason to pause is to remember that we're two part of nature and that we go through cycles and it's all meant for our growth. And sometimes we can feel up and sometimes we can feel down in all of that. And that's why the pause, like you said, to slow down is so important. But for some reason, like the rule breaking is like sticking with me, and it wasn't intended to be part of our conversation. But I feel like that is like I think what we need, what I want to like focus on, because it's so interesting that I said not that I'm encouraging people to break rules, but it's like it wasn't until I had the awakening myself to understand that I've been following along with the status quo, living my life, checking boxes, and then it's like, how did that serve me? Pleasing everybody else over myself. And I think so many of us get into that pattern and don't even realize it and don't want to be the disruptor, don't want to be the rebeller, the rebellious one. And because we don't want to rock the boat or whatever our excuse is. But I think that we can get ourselves caught up in certain circumstances then because we don't say anything or we don't rock the boat
yeah,
or we don't
yeah,
make a change in our lives. We don't eliminate certain relationships or things from our lives that are keeping us back, holding us back. And this is the invitation of this time right now, is like to focus on, like, speaking of like rule breaking, it's like we as individuals, you know, aren't necessarily allowed to break, or there's like consequences for our rules, but are there consequences for um the powers that be, let's just say, for example, to change the rules and then we just accept that?
yeah,
Like, I don't,
yeah,
and not to get like political, but it's like there's a lot going on right now in the States where I feel like a lot of things have just been overlooked that we, you know, and it's like, so I'm inviting people to really like look into why you believe, like if you believe what you believe before, and if you know, and it can be any belief, but it's like our beliefs change and that's okay. And sometimes we may stick out, sometimes we may be the rebellious one, and that's okay too, because it has to start somewhere. It has to start on the individual level change, like real positive change. And so if we all just sit by and don't say anything, then nothing's going to change that needs to. And we're
yeah,
just going to allow, and we become more disempowered where we're already disempowered to begin with in certain
yeah,
areas. So I just feel like that rule breaking statement or energy is like, it's not about breaking the law or whatever, but it's about like revisiting what it is we believe in for ourselves. I see Rebecca is typing something in the
yes.
comments. So
But
it's like just
yeah,
really, like I said, with myself, like getting honest with myself. So getting honest with ourselves about what our values are, and how we want to live our lives. And it doesn't have to necessarily be so serious each time we do that. Like
yeah,
it's kind of like go with the flow, but also be mindful of like honoring yourself. I know for me, I don't feel good when I'm out of alignment with my soul, and that's a signal for me that I need to visit something within myself. Like take that time to reflect.
yeah, yeah. So, like you say, Rebecca's put a comment in,
Yeah,
hasn't she? About being so scared and, you know, transition and change. And we are scared of it, aren't we? And we are almost conditioned nice to not rock the boat,
Hmm.
aren't we? So I totally agree with you there, Rebecca, and thanks for sharing that because it is, and I just put this is meant for us, and I think it is for us, isn't it? You know, why not take that? Why not do what's best for us? And I hope that's what you meant, Rebecca, because that's the way I'm taking that. So correct me if
Yeah,
I'm
I think
wrong, but
she said just as ridiculous why we are so scared to live the life that is meant for us. That's what she
yeah,
means.
that's
And
right. That's you're
yeah,
absolutely right.
it is
Yeah,
so true. I feel that.
yeah, and to have the courage to tap in and question what is meant for us. You
Hmm.
know, if we're not feeling 100% and not feeling things are quite right, to be brave enough to question that and actually go, okay, then, like with myself, you know, I might go, I'm not feeling it quite right at the moment, but I don't know what is right. So what is, and opening that up and going, okay, I really don't know, but this isn't feeling right. What else is there? That kind of thing. And sometimes having a bit of a leap of faith and letting go of something to open up a space for something new to come in. I mean, that's a
Hmm.
big thing to do,
Yep.
isn't it? But sometimes we do to do that. And again, that's courage and that is trusting that there is something better. But that starts with tuning into your own feelings, doesn't it? Really, really tuning in and knowing and not ignoring that. You know, if there's that little nagging doubt somewhere that goes, I mean, I'm thinking of jobs I've been in where I've not been happy and actually just going, I don't know, and being scared to do anything if I didn't have another job to go to, that kind of thing. But sometimes, and I have done it, you know, that come away and then something better turns up because, and I do trust because that has happened in my past so often that that will happen.
Yeah.
But it's still, and like I say, what is meant for us, there is always better out there for us, isn't there? I do believe that, and my life experience has showed me that time and time again. Have you had experiences like that, Trish, where you've sort of left something behind with all that sadness and grief and loss that goes with it and fear, and found that there is something better? Have you had
Oh,
experiences like that?
tons. And I mean, that's why I think that, and lots of like things that were like devastating in my life. And I think a lot of people can relate, that have been pain points or grief, points of grief. And I think that is, you know, accepting that invitation that grief offers us, like, because ultimately it's about some sort of loss. And I think that I think, and I was thinking about this earlier today. I feel like we're constantly navigating some sense of that, like on a small level, and we brush that off, and we don't necessarily acknowledge it, and then that compounds and builds. So when we do have a bigger grief point in our life, it becomes even bigger than it needed to be because we haven't dealt with all the grief before that. And but I feel like, yeah, there's been points in my path that have felt like, how can I, like, my life is over, or like, how can I move past this or whatever. Not
Yeah, yeah,
but ultimately, it was once I was able to allow myself to feel that pain of emotional pain of that, then to see that there was something there for me to grow from, some wisdom to glean from that
yes,
situation about myself,
yeah,
and to know that, like you said, it gets better. It's not even necessarily about better, but it is better because we become more evolved. We become a stronger, more empowered version of ourselves when we
yes,
allow ourselves to embrace that change, to embrace the grief, to embrace the
yeah,
loss, whatever it is,
yeah,
and just let ourselves feel our way through it and to the other
yeah.
side of it.
I
That's
think I think that's a really good point to say. It's not necessarily that things are better all the time, but we are in a different place
mm-hmm.
to accept them in a better way, enjoy them in a better way. Maybe that's probably more what I meant because we do that. I just having a look at what Rebecca's put here. But I consider myself a rule breaker all of my life, probably because the rules I was taught and conditioned were not meant for me. I hear you, Rebecca, and I totally feel that too.
Yeah.
Not my rules. I love that. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I've always been like this rule follower and like take things literally and all of that. So this is a practice for me to, an ongoing practice to say, like, why is this that way? Why have we accepted
yeah,
that as society? Why is nobody saying anything about X or whatever? And not
yeah.
X, I'm not talking about X as in social media, but
No,
X
not
as
that.
in fill in the blank.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe that too. Anyways, that's a
Mm.
whole nother
But it's
topic.
right, isn't it, to have that childlike curiosity, isn't it? You know, to keep that freshness, to not be children aren't frightened of asking questions that we would go, oh, you can't say that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's been plenty of times in my nursery school years, you know, when I was teaching lovely little 3 and 4 year olds, that they'd say something and you go, oh, can't say that, and then go, yeah, you can, and it's great, and you
Mm-hmm.
can, and why shouldn't you? Asking a question or saying something that isn't necessarily, you know, we have been conditioned, like you say, Rebecca, you know, that this is
Mm-hmm.
a rule that we've learned, and actually they haven't learned that, and good for them, because it's something that I like to step into, and as I say, childlike curiosity, however you want to look at it. And I do know, and I've probably said this before, curiosity keeps you young, so we need to keep that
Mm-hmm.
curious mind, and we need to be open and say what we think and feel within reason, obviously not to be cruel to people, but to ask those questions, and to not settle for things like, say, the status quo, and not be frightened
Yeah,
of rocking
I
a bit,
love
because
that.
and this is how the world changes. And when you
It.
look at great people in this world, they've been the people that have been, they've stood up and they've said things, you know, and I think thank heavens for those people,
Mm-hmm.
because we wouldn't have the world that we have now without it. And I'd like to think that I'm a little bit like that, more than I used to be. And I've got growth. I've still got a way to go with that. But even just for yourself to question yourself, and as I say, to tune
Mm-hmm.
in to you and do, as we talked about before, my gentle questioning and going, what's this about? Because you get answers. And when you are out of your head and out of the conformity, you know, the things that we've been taught, traditions,
Right.
that kind of thing, then we can just let our heart speak. And our heart always knows.
Our
We do
heart
know.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. And the heart knows what questions to ask as well. And I love that when we do get, like I say, I'm finding things a little bit easier because I've got out of my own way a little bit, you know, thanks to
Mm-hmm.
your support and the way that we do things. And that's my growth. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
really grateful for that. So I've gone through quite a lot that has made me go, you know, I was talking before we came on live, didn't we, Trish, about I can't control my hair. You know, that's a big life lesson that I'm nearly 60 and I'm just getting it. You know, give it up. I can't control my hair. It's doing what it wants, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I still haven't quite got there, but I'm better than, better than I was. So it's those kind of things, isn't it? And I do want to repeat again, you know, what I have felt more recently is actually it can be easier, and that relaxing and that pausing and just letting it be, you know, listening to the universe, listening to my heart a bit more. The joy of that is it does make it easier. It doesn't have to be so hard as I have made a lot of things. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest feeling at the moment. That actually, you know, realizing things, recognizing, accepting.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be difficult, and it can
And
be scary, but it doesn't say scary for long. And that's what I love as well.
yeah, everything is temporary.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I love that, like leaning into the curiosity, like a childlike curiosity, and allowing ourselves to do that. And rather than um, rooting firmer into our beliefs when we haven't
mm,
maybe asked those, like you said, gentle questions to ourselves, your
mm,
gentle question method, but which is so beautiful and can be used in so many different ways. But I feel like that is just a powerful tool to allow yourself that space to reflect, to ask those questions internally, like what is serving me right now? What is my heart speaking to me right
yeah,
now?
yeah,
Even if it's different than what you've committed to in the past,
yeah,
even if it's different than what you speak about with your friend group or whatever, or try to convince yourself, like through rooting firmer in your beliefs around something. It's like things change, we grow, we evolve. So
yeah,
why wouldn't
yeah,
the things that we believe in
yeah,
also grow and evolve?
yes,
And that's okay. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us if we don't align with what somebody else believes or whatever. There's space
mm,
for all of it, that
mm,
all of us to do that, to be curious.
yeah,
And I think for me that's always like an ongoing practice, because I've always been one to not ask so many
yeah,
questions
yeah,
because
mm,
of my
and
conditioning. And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and
so
sometimes, you know, we are, like I said about the children, you know, in the nursery school situation, you know, sometimes they're not necessarily punished for it, but they're told not to, you know, and then they learn not to, and that's a sadness, I feel, that they learn
mhm.
not to actually say what they want to say or ask what they want to ask. There's no harm in that, I don't think. but also I feel that it's that whole kind of um, getting away from the fear and like you say, growing and growing through things and getting used to, the more you do something, the more you are comfortable with it. And like
Hmm.
you say, breaking the rules, letting go of your old story. I mean, that's been big for me lately, letting go of what I thought I would, like you say, not being frightened to change your mind. Well,
Hmm.
I thought that was the way I wanted my life to be. I thought that's what I want. I've said it. I'm a big one to go, well, I've said it. I'm loyal to a fault, loyal to myself, loyal to my word, loyal to everybody, And actually, I think that if I then change my mind, I'm being disloyal. And
Hmm.
I'm learning that that isn't the case. I can change and it is okay. And I'm not being as disloyal as I think I am. I'm not upsetting people like I think I am if I change. So
Hmm.
allowing yourself that growth and again, recognizing that change is a part of life. And again, I've come quite late into the day to actually accept that, it is okay to change. We're meant to change. We're meant to grow. And I'm embracing that much more now. And that again is very freeing and it makes things a lot easier. Just go, yeah, I've changed. I've said this one day, but I can change my mind. I can do that.
Yeah.
And again, the world doesn't stop. I don't upset people like I fear that I'm going to.
Right.
So yeah, so that again is a big lesson for me. And I know that you go through that too, don't you? That you can do things and it's okay.
Yeah. And it's all like I'm connecting all of these dots as you're saying, saying all these insights that are coming through for you around how between the curiosity and the breaking the rules, and then this framing of like being disloyal if you're kind of like going out, or um, changing the status of relationship with your friends, family, or whoever, romantic, and all of these things that we frame in society. Like we've been, and it goes back to what Rebecca was talking about earlier, is conditioning, and
Yes.
like how it's like, and when you said about how like we treat children when they ask questions, no, don't ask questions, just
Mm,
like do what
mm,
you're told. And it's
yes.
like, but as children, the younger, when we're in our toddler years, and there's scientific studies on this too, is like we remember, like, before we came into this world, we remember why we're here, we remember the plan, we remember who we are, but like society then trains us who we need to be, to be somebody
Yeah.
in society. And so
So
follow the
yes.
rules, don't ask
Yeah.
questions, don't fall,
So
like don't
mm,
be selfish, don't be disloyal, don't be all the things,
mm,
because you need to conform. You also use that word,
mm,
conformity. and
mm,
and so I feel like all of this change and grief or whatever that comes up in our lives is there for us to tap into, to then explore the parts of ourselves where we've let go of who we are. And those are little portals back to remember who we are and who we
yes.
came here to be and what we came here to do.
Yeah.
And that's why it can feel so threatening, and why
Mm,
a lot of the work that we do on the energetic level can sometimes be pushed to the fringe. And like, people can say, oh, that's a bunch of fluff, like that doesn't work, and that's
yeah.
not for me, and like, how can that be true, and all the
Yes.
things, because it
Because
does
again,
actually help us and support us.
it does, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And it rocks some people's world a little
Right.
bit, doesn't it, when we tune in? And it's something. I mean, it's a phrase that you used in your book, and I'm going to talk about your book because everything, love me, the original, and as you can see in the little notes and everything, my reference. This is the reason that we are talking, why we have these chit chats. But everything we've talked about today, about the phrase that I'm trying to remember, and I might not say it exactly right, is when we shave off a bit of ourselves to fit in. That's
Mm-hmm.
in there, isn't it? When I read
Yeah.
that bit, I said, oh my God, that's so me. And, you do that and you're fitting in with someone else's rules, like Rebecca says, and you're fitting in, but it doesn't fit right with you and it doesn't make you feel good and it doesn't do you any good. So we need to change that. And all of these things, like you talked about,
Mm-hmm.
taking the easy way, pressing the easy button, that's in there, isn't it? There's so much in your book. Practically everything we've talked about today is in there,
Mm-hmm.
and I use it as a reference, to tap into and go, oh, there's a bit in there, reread that and go, oh, what I can learn from it, because I originally, and I haven't read it all now, yeah, not in the right order.
Yeah.
I read it
Oh, I
all.
love that
There's,
though. That's
there's
fine.
there's bits, yeah, I don't do it in the right order, and that's fine. But there's bits in there that are so valuable for me to read because it's your experience, and for a start to know that what I'm feeling is not, I'm not alone. That's
Right.
valuable. But also to go, and this is what happened with you. This is your story,
Yeah.
and you're still here, and you're growing, and you're evolving, and you're changing. So it's all okay. You're living proof, and as I say, I can't say it enough. That's why we have these chit chats. It's all about what's in here. You're wonderful, but this is your original, isn't it? There's two
Yeah.
others, isn't
Thank you for bringing
there?
that, looping that in. And
Yeah,
it's, yeah. And the message behind that. And, um, it's why we're, yeah, talking about what we're talking about, while I continue to always want to talk about these things out in the open, because it's so important. And I know I'm not the only one. And I know we all have our own lives and own experiences, but there's always parallels we can draw from sharing our stories. And I just want to
yeah,
say that was published almost 3 years ago.
wow,
And like you said, you finished reading it finally. It's not an easy read, and it's not necessarily meant to, like, you can, I've heard from people that you can pick it up and find some sort of
you're
insight just
so
on any page you
you're
pick
so
up.
right.
And
Yeah, you're
somebody
so right.
reached out to me, and they had bought my book a while ago, and they just started reading it at this specific time in their life. And she came to me and said, like, your book is speaking my life right now. Like, I
Mm,
just can't believe the divine timing of why I waited to read it, and
yes,
now this is
yes,
exactly what I needed. And it's not to, like, toot my own horn or whatever, but it's like,
but
this is
it's
why I
true.
put this out there, because I know that my story is specific, and there's a lot of things that might not be resonant, but there's a lot of things that are. And then I talk about a lot of things that I think a lot of people, like, might um, have those same reflections too, but might not know how to put words to it, or might not be
Yes, yeah,
able to speak that truth in
yeah,
their own lives. And
yeah,
so, like, I always want to continuously, like, evolve on that message of, uncovering who we are, uncovering that love for ourselves, and in that
mhm,
process is how we become more empowered, and more we make the real change. And we, like you said, there's always something better, there's always more to grow and evolve into. And while we're here in this short blip of a lifetime. And I'm just excited to like how that is going to evolve in the future as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
which I haven't talked
yeah.
about yet, but
And like you say, it is, it's so good to read whatever bit you read. And I do
mm-hmm.
that. Sometimes I just open it and I look at a bit and I go, oh, that's what I need to hear today, for instance. And that's so you can just dip in and out. And also, there's poetry in there as well, which I've always said, that's so you write so well that you can get so much emotion in fewer words. And again, to dip into some of the poetry, you have a book that is all poetry, but in your original Love Me, there's poems as well, isn't there? And I love that because the emotions come up, don't they? And especially when people are afraid of their feelings so much. I find that when I read your poetry, especially, the emotions bubble up, and I'm really pleased that that brings that out in me because it moves, doesn't it? It moves your feelings, it moves what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important, isn't it? When the emotions are stuck and stagnant, that is not a healthy place to be. So sometimes just reading a poem, and I like to read out loud as
Yeah.
well, that gives power. And I do feel that, so that again is a way that I use your book continually, look
Mm.
at it and go, oh, it's a poem that's speaking to me. I'll read it out and I'll see what I feel. And I can read the same poem at different times and feel something different.
Right.
Um, so
Yep.
I love to do that. So there's lots of ways that we can use your wonderful writing, but it is a lot to do with the fact that you describe in there, and I'm not giving anything away to anyone that hasn't read it, but how bad you feel at times and how scared you are and everything, and your emotions you describe so. I was going to say beautifully because it's not always beautiful, but you describe them
Mm.
beautifully. Um, so we can actually go there with you and then come out with you as well. And that again, there's a great comfort in that, isn't there? To be, it's like
Yeah.
watching a film, isn't it? You're watching a film, we're all in it together, especially if you're at cinema or something. We're all in it together, but we all come out together as well. And I feel that when I read, I feel so connected to you. Um,
Mm.
and I just think, and as I say, you've done it, you've been through it, and you're still here, and that gives me lots of hope. So I'm sure other people will get that too, reading that your story. Like I say, it's not the same as everyone else's, but you can relate, aren't you? So I really feel there's lots of value. So I'm so grateful that you wrote the book in the first place, and that we get a chance to talk about it because this started off, didn't it, as me going, I've got
Yeah.
questions,
Let's talk
but
about
I'm
it.
sure
Yeah.
other people do. and I get the chance to ask you directly. So I will say again to everyone else, if you've got any questions about the Love Me book or the poetry, anything that you've got, if you've got any questions, put them in the comments because we will actually answer them. We do look and we will answer. If you haven't got the book already, then I would suggest you do get it because there's tons in there and it is very comforting and it's good to have it, as I say, as a reference on life because it's all about life, isn't it? You know,
Mhm.
it is your story, but it's life in general, isn't it? So, but I just love, as I say, dipping in and then I've got a question or something I want to talk about with you and I get the chance to. So I'm so glad that I can do that, but anyone else can do that too. So put stuff in the comments if you want to.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that in, and yeah, I'm just so grateful that we have been doing this now for a couple of years, like talking about
I
this,
know,
and it's
I
hard to
know.
believe, but I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of the topics are timeless. I think we've talked about a couple
okay.
like more than once, but there's always different angles,
Mm,
and like we always, it's okay to come back and revisit things like,
mm,
and that was like one of my messages of today too, is like things we thought we had like kind of shut the door on,
mm,
and maybe the door was kind of left open a little bit and then that door swung wide open, and then
yeah,
it's okay. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with us, that we have to kind of go through something again. It's on a deeper level always, and there's always more insights, and it's just another opportunity to understand ourselves better. And why do we want to do that? Because that it makes all of our relationships with others, like on whatever level, that much more richer in our
yeah,
lives. So
yeah,
and it just, we live empowered. We live in our truth, and we're, constantly, I think through that, opening ourselves up to just that, go deeper with it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Totally,
continuously. Yeah.
totally. And I think if anyone's listening to this and they're a little bit confused as to how to do this, how to tune into themselves, I would just encourage them to take a moment, hands on heart if that helps
Mm-hmm.
you, but focus, shut your eyes, focus on the breath. If you don't want to shut your eyes, just focus on something in nature. Look at something like a tree or a flower or something, and just breathe and tune into yourself. Just give yourself that, like we said earlier, pause. It can be as quick as a minute,
Mm-hmm.
just to pause a few breaths and tune in. And you'll be amazed at what difference that makes. You come out the other side of that pause, if you like, different. And you can pause for as long or as quickly as you want to.
Right.
You can do it 20 minutes if you like, you can do a minute, but you're giving yourself that little moment, a bit of a break, and then you come out and you have sometimes a different perspective. So I encourage anyone just to try that. And if you want to know a bit more detail, I'm happy to talk it through with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Just guide people through that because it's powerful, isn't it? We've done it together, haven't we, Tricia?
Yeah. And I think that, like, that's something you can implement right now, like
Mm,
today, into your
yeah,
day, whether it's like at lunchtime or at the
yeah,
end of your day or a mid-afternoon break or whatever, multiple times. But I feel like just allowing yourself that space to drop in and just, give yourself that moment of
yeah,
pause
yeah,
is like so empowering just on its own. And
yeah.
also, like, you have some beautiful guided meditations too for people if they want to take it further.
Yeah, we
And
do.
those,
Yeah.
I think they can find on your YouTube channel or your calmerself.co.uk
That's
website.
right. Yeah, on
Right.
my website, there's a lot. My YouTube channel, which is Calmer Self as well, it's all Calmer Self. There's tons on there, isn't there? All of our conversations are on there as well, so you can look at other stuff
Yeah.
that we've talked about. But yeah, there's tons, and people can find you on what's your website and where do they find
This
your
is Trish Campbell. Yeah. And the books you can find on Amazon worldwide. That's the easiest place to access them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, like Nadine said, if you have anything you want us to talk about in the future, if you're reading the book, or if not, anything that you want us to touch on, or if we've touched on something today that you want us to take deeper, we're going to post the replay of this. So just let us know
yeah.
in the comments. And thank you to everyone who joined us live today
Yes,
as
thank
well.
you. It's lovely to see people pop up, isn't it, and have some comments while we're talking. It's wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Rebecca, thanks so much for your
Thank
insights
you.
too, and
Yes,
for being here and asking the questions and
I
sharing
just
a little bit as well.
if I may, I'll just say what Rebecca
Sure.
said here because it's so beautiful. Thank you, Rebecca. The Love Me book awakes the insightful soul. That is so beautiful. And you've said as well, thank you, Rebecca. Nadine, your meditations are so healing. But
Yeah,
thank you. It's
I
really
echo
that's
that as well. Yeah.
that's lovely to hear. I've got chills. So thank you. I love that. So yeah, it's all out there, like you say, website. We can find stuff. So go and look up more about us if you want to. And as I say, any questions or anything that you want us to talk about, because we talk about anything, really, won't we?
Yeah, we do.
Then please comment.
Yeah. All right.
Thank, thank you so much for
Yeah,
this,
thank
Rebecca.
you,
Again,
Nadine. And
it's been
just, yeah, just everyone, if,
enlightening.
yeah, it's been so good. And just a final message of it's okay to go slow. In fact, yeah,
Yeah,
let yourself
indulge.
go there. So
Yeah,
thanks, everyone,
indulge.
and we will see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank you so much. Bye bye then.